And if you just joined us, this is Business Fig broadcasting from our studios here in Lagos. Let's get into our conversation now. It's been 1 year since the federal government declared a state of emergency in the agricultural sector and rolled out various interventions to address the country's food security crisis. But the surging cost of food continues to impact the nation as prices of food have more than doubled in the last 1 year. With this is despite the administration's efforts to boost local food production, enhance the supply chain, and shield consumers from the impact of rising prices. According to NBS's report, food inflation rose to 40.87% in the month of June, with prices of staple commodities such as rice, beans, and grains continue to soar, far outpacing the government's effort to stabilize the market. But what are the fundamental issues that require paying attention to? Let's provide some perspective on this development. I'm joined by an associate financial market at Apex, Aissat Dahoud. Thank you for joining us, Aissat. Let's get into the conversation now. Since the federal government declared a state of emergency in the agri sector in July last year, 2023, food inflation has been on the rise by more than 11% to 40.87% in June 2024. How would you measure the progress at the Apex? Additionally, what factors would you say have contributed to the persistent rise in food prices despite the various interventions from the federal government?
So let's start by assessing the reason behind the declaration for state of an emergency in the food sufficiency in the agricultural value chain. So we'll start with when the current administration assumed the position. That's in 2023. Upon inauguration, fuel subsidy was removed. From removal of subsidy, we had the flotation of the naira, whereby exchange rate was allowed to play itself out in the market. Removing the fuel subsidy has impact on all forms of businesses. All this led to the rising surge of food staples in market, thereby causing inflation. 2023 inflation was about 26%, food inflation was about 25%. It was majorly driven by food inflation. Looking at it today, food inflation is about 31% thereabout, and food inflation has surged as high as 40.87%, like you mentioned. Upon declaring the state of emergency for food sufficiency, the government highlighted the reason in a bid to address the rising cost of food staples, the government declared the state of emergency, thereby approving for anything matters that has to do with food, water affordability, and accessibility to be under the purview of the National Security Council. And they declared the immediate, medium to long-term interventions. Immediate interventions that were explored were, disbursement of fertilizers, agri inputs, and grains to farmers. That's where their immediate interventions. The medium to long-term interventions were to explore and partner with the Ministry of Waters to ensure an efficient irrigation system for the farmers. They also partnered with stakeholders like Natural and the likes, and even they went as far as putting in partner that they wish to create the National Commodity Board for price stability mechanism. All these interventions have been explored, but a year after, we're still seeing the rise in food staples and food inflation is still surging. Look at it. A year ago, you can afford a loaf of bread at 500 naira or below, and currently, to get a loaf of bread, you have to get about 1,500 naira. Rice, look at rice. The price has skyrocketed, and all this has been as a result of the impact and effect of the macros on the agricultural value chain, not to talk of the actual challenges in agriculture.